All right. Thank you to Heather. She told me that chapter 16 got cut off, so I apologize. Here are the last few pages of chapter 16. And here's my kitty once again, Catalina, making her cameo. Ooh, look at, you're getting feisty right there, live action feisty. I guess we're all entitled to be feisty when we're 14 and a kitty. Oh, there's her tail in your way. Okay, here goes. We left off on page 165 in the ending part of chapter 16. The map traced a line along the North Fork of the American River, through the Coloma Valley, and ended with an X mark that could only be Shirt Tail Camp. "Why, this map is no good," snapped Praiseworthy. "I didn't say it was, except to make my hat fit. But that's the map Buckbee's brother made before he died, the same, the genuine article. Only in the meantime, them pockets of gold got discovered all over again. By time I got here, there were 100 miners on the spot." Jack moaned as best he could with the forceps, trying to spread his teeth apart. Their 50-50 share of Dr. Buckbee's mine was worthless. Cut-Eye Higgins had led them on a wild goose chase. "Get me out of this noose," said Cut-Eye Higgins. "That was our bargain, wasn't it?" Praiseworthy ripped the map to bits. He'd given his word and he had to stand by it. "Gentlemen," he said, turning to the Justice of the Peace and others grouped around him, "I take it you have acted as judge and jury in this case?" "That's right," answered the official. "He got a fair trial and anyway. He was caught red-handed." "Was he represented by counsel?" "What for? We knew he was guilty." "Under what law do you intend to dispatch Doc Higgins from the limb of that tree?" "Why, everybody knows horse stealing is agin the law." "What law?" "Now listen here, stranger, there ain't a law book within 50 miles that I know of. I hear they had one over at Growlersburg, but it was printed on thin paper and the boys took to rolling cigarettes with it. Speaking for myself, I don't see any reason to let law interfere with justice around here. We never did before." Praiseworthy began pacing slowly back and forth. "In the absence of book law, gentlemen, I recommend to your notice that humanity is also lacking in this case. You're about to string up the only dentist in these diggings. Is that humane? He may deserve his fate, but what of the innocent whose only crime is to come down with a toothache?" Praiseworthy turned and made a grand courtroom gesture toward Jack. "Like my young partner here. Think of the pain and suffering you will inflict on those in dire need of a tooth extractor. Tomorrow it may be you, sir, with your cheeks swelled up like a melon. Or you, sir, Mr. Justice of the Peace, with a pain in your jaw as if you had a bee for a molar, stinging away from morning till night." One by one, he singled out the gentlemen of the jury, and one by one they found themselves rubbing their jaws, as if they could almost feel a toothache coming on. Praiseworthy had never made a speech in his life, but the words rolled off his tongue, and he could feel their effect on the crowd. When he finished, he was greeted with a yell of approval. "He's talking sense," someone called out. "The doc can't pull teeth if he's 6 feet under. We could put him in jail." The Justice of Shirt Tail Camp shook his head. "Boys, we ain't got a jail, you know that. The verdict was string him up, but I suppose I could delay sentence until another tooth extractor shows up in these parts. There's bound to be one before long. Then we'll get on with the sentence." There was a general approval from the crowd, and 2 toothaches broke out on the spot. Praiseworthy was astonished by the power he had found in his voice. The 2 miners got in line at the molasses barrel, and Jack was glad to give up his place. "My tooth has stopped hurting," he said, and Cut-Eye Higgins gave him a wink with his bad eye. "Doc Higgins," said the Justice of the Peace, "you got yourself a temporary reprieve. When you finish with these extracting jobs, you stand still and we're going to build a jailhouse around you." There'll be visiting hours for anyone with a toothache. But I'll see you hung yet, and soon as possible." Then he turned to Praiseworthy. "Stranger, I promised the doc a good burying befitting a professional man. Might as well get all in readiness, since you appointed yourself counsel for the defense. You get up in the hills and dig him a resting place. Make it 6 feet deep." "Why 6 feet?" "Don't be cantankerous, or I'll fine you for being in contempt of court. Everybody knows a grave has got to be 6 feet deep. Get going." The two partners returned to their burrow and led him into the hills above the diggings. "You sure made a good speech," Jack said. "It was something to hear. A regular lawyer couldn't have done better, and you saved Cut-Eye Higgins from being strung up." "It's just temporary, which is about all he deserves." They chose a bare spot about half a mile from camp. It was on a bluff covered with oat straw and overlooking the river. They pulled pick and shovel from Stubbs' pack ropes and set to work. "Fine-looking country, isn't it?" Praiseworthy muttered. "Even to be buried in." Jack tried not to think about Boston. It would soon be time to start back, and all they had to show for their labors was a worthless map. Poor Aunt Arabella, he thought. They would lose the house for sure. The entire trip to California was beginning to look like a wild goose chase. When they got the hole 4 feet deep, they couldn't get any further. They hit bedrock and struck gold. Eureka! And that ends chapter 16.